Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's broadcast on Maconi Entertainment. My name is Joey Adbury, and joining me in the booth tonight will be Justin Prince. Eddie Smith working the controls as our producer, and the camera angles being provided by Dougie Beard. Tonight is the third race of the Ignite Racing League's Hot Rod Setups Cup Series, featuring the next-gen cars at the Watkins Glen Cup layout. Watkins Glen is a tough nut to crack, but once you have it figured out, it's common to see multiple trips to victory lane. Watch out for the Ignite GT3 Series drivers tonight, which we broadcast on Monday nights here at Maconi Entertainment. Any of the GT3 drivers who wins the race tonight will also see a $20 bonus from Hot Rod Setups. Justin, why don't you tell us more about Watkins Glen and some of the action that we are going to see here tonight?
Thank you very much, Joey. Tonight, of course, Watkins Glen International, the track we are visiting here with the 2.42 miles on the circuit. Of course, located in rural Watkins Glen, New York, this track established back in 1956 and has hosted plenty of major events from IMSA all the way to some of the top world championship races in real-world competition. This track also features long straightaways with some high-speed curves amongst the various turns, especially up through the S's. But keep in mind, some of the top passing opportunities today with the run through the 90, as well as, well, any place the mistakes come in. The bus stop, for example, is the chance and the place where wheel hop or potential overshooting the bus stop could end someone's day or lose them 10 to 15 seconds. The carousel, also a spot where we've seen drivers poke underneath a few times in the past in various battles. Coming to mind, for example, the Brad Keselowski and Marcus Ambrose battle that happened about a decade or so ago here. And of course, 30 laps on the docket tonight, 73.5 miles for these drivers tonight to get around Watkins Glen International. A competition caution currently projected for lap 14 tonight for the Next Gen Cup cars.
You mentioned it, Justin. We're looking at the 30 laps total tonight with that competition caution. Right at about halfway through the race distance. It'll be interesting because I know that you were doing the math, and it looks to be right at the end of a fuel run. So we'll see if any of these drivers get really aggressive, or maybe we'll see if they take tires, maybe 2 tires, maybe no tires out there, and see a little bit of strategy played out here on the racetrack. But these cars are out in an open qualifying session right now. Currently, provisional pole is the number 47 car of Kyle Edgar, sitting at a 109.69, and he is the only car in the 9s here tonight. Connor James currently second at a 110.2, but check that out, Justin. Daniel Ott sitting there at a 110.24, only 3/1000ths of a second separating second and third.
Daniel Ott looking very comfortable. In fact, in one of the final practices in preparation for tonight, Ott traded the top time in the session with Kyle Ager. When Ott set the faster time, Kyle Ager started to practice again to try and beat his time. It should be surprised to see Daniel Ott doing well in this session. After all, he's 4th in the GT3 standings.
Yes, you mentioned it. He's traded that Audi for the Cup car here at Watkins Glen. The GT3 and Cup cars can't really be further apart from each other. Maybe the older ones were even further apart, but yeah, quite a bit of a difference. But it seems like Daniel Ott has a good grasp of this race car out there. And looking at about 30 seconds left here remaining in qualifying. I'm not seeing too many more cars put down lap times right now. Justin, something else we're going to have to keep an eye on is just kind of the difference in speed throughout this entire field. Looks like we got JP Alfonso on our screen, one of our GT3 Series regulars as well. But that time delta difference between some of the fast guys and some of the guys further down the pack could play havoc when it comes to lap traffic tonight.
There is that possibility. If it comes down to it, if drivers have major mistakes, might not be as frequent with it being about 14 laps for a comp caution. But there is the chance to with the traffic. The time difference already 4 seconds qualifying, and that expected to exacerbate and spread apart as the race goes on, depending on how drivers feel as the tires wear out.
Definitely, and qualifying is going to be winding down here in the next couple minutes, and while these cars put in maybe one more lap as the checkered flag flies, Want to give a shout out to all of tonight's sponsors, Maconi Entertainment. If you're interested in any of the broadcasting information that you guys see here on the screen tonight, head on over to MaconiSetupShop.com. Click on the Maconi Entertainment tab up in the upper corner there, and you can fill out that information about getting your own series broadcasted here on the screen. Also want to say thank you to Hot Rod Setup Shops, the title sponsor of tonight, the Cup Series here. Reach out to Hot Rod Setups on Facebook or Discord to find out more about them. JP Alfonso Studios, the title sponsor of the GT3 series here. They're a tattoo shop in Norcross, Georgia. If you're interested in anything more about JP Alfonso, head on over to jpalfonsostudios.com for all of their work and booking. And of course, the series partners Tam Livery, and like we just mentioned, JP Alfonso. Looks like only about 30 seconds left here, and we will have qualifying completely wrapped up for you and be able to show you the starting grid here in just a few. But while these cars are all gridding out, Justin, let's talk a little bit about Watkins Glen. I know that you mentioned you were up in the Toronto area. Have you had the chance to make the trip down to Watkins Glen yet?
Not in real world yet, but of course have had some chance to race in it in the virtual world when it comes to iRacing, especially when it comes to the stock cars in particular. It's a racetrack which has its fast sections as we talked about, but also can have some strong flowing areas around this respective circuit, which can really challenge you. If you're not comfortable under brakings, especially in the next-gen car tonight, it could be very difficult to be able to make up time.
Yes, and those braking zones are ever important, especially here in a heavier car. And looks like we are finally getting cars gridded up, which means we've got our official starting grid here on the screen. Looks like our pole sitter is that number 47, Kyle Edgar, sharing the front row is the number 4 car of Connor James. Daniel Ott in 3rd place, Mark Royce 4th, and Trayton Lapsevich rounding out the top 5. Jose Puch there in the 6th position, Juan Salazar, JP Alfonso, Connor Webb, and John Barry round out the top 10.
Nick Ledson tonight starting 11th alongside Justin Knapp to round out the drivers who set qualifying times. It's worth noting Michael Farrell amongst those who entered in practice did not set a qualifying time and is currently not in the session. Drivers who are on the starting grid though, Jack Dixon, Connor Ellis, Matthew Fanoff, and Don York, of course, up in race control, keeping an eye on the action tonight as we get ready to go racing from the Glen.
As always, a nice hello to Don York out there, keeping an eye on all of the drivers. He tries to keep them in check, and you know, we talk about drivers in real life. It's a little bit like running a daycare, and trust me, I think he knows what I'm talking about when it comes to incidents out there. And looks like the pace car is officially rolled off a grid. We're going to be going a full pace lap here around Watkins Glen, but like you were mentioning earlier, this is the shorter Cup version layout, so we don't do the boot and whatnot 30 laps. Open setup here, so all of these drivers have been tuning those cars, hopefully, based on their own driving style. We do have a fuel limit capacity, so they will have to stop probably under that competition caution, fill up the gas, and we'll see if they do take any fresh tires on that. And they do get one fast repair out there just in case they pick up any damage, but Justin, only one fast repair, and you know how quickly that the bus stop can catch these cars out and throw them into the wall, or even more so on the exit of that carousel can do the same thing.
Especially off the start of a race, because if you have someone who just misses their braking board by even about 50 feet, you may see a driver end up becoming a pinball, essentially. It's happened in official races plenty of times, to say the very least. But when it comes to the carousel portion, if you hit the gas too much, get your car loose, absolutely can get very loose and spin it across the racetrack, or better yet, get to where you get to the second half of the bus stop, hit the driver in front of you, and then have a stack up at the carousel.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And you mentioned the pinball and just a little bit of braking mishap on those first couple laps. You got to be very careful because these cars draft very well. Oftentimes, it's not just you in a battle with somebody else. Everyone is stacked up there. So let's watch these cars down into turn 1, through the bus stop, and through the carousel for the first time. It looks like All of them are trying to warm up their tires just that last little bit here before they round the final turn. They're going to get gridded up 2x2. This Porsche safety car is going to dip off camera, driver's right, and it will be Kyle Edgar in the number 47 machine alongside of Connor James, going to be leading them to Barney with the green flag. And we've got a green flag on the racetrack. Pretty even start from our front row. We're going to go 3 wide, potentially further back in the pack, but nice, clean getaway through turn 1 for our entire field. And now they're going to head up the S's for the first time.
Nice and clean up to the launch to start off the race. James looking a little bit tight. He had tried to warm up the tires like a late model, it seemed, from his real-world experience. That's cost him a fair bit of ground in terms of the grip. Edgar looking extremely comfortable up in the clean air, all ready to lead up the field to the bus stop.
Pretty clean for the entire field. Oh no, looks like we got the number 129. That's Connor Webb around, causing a little bit of a track blockage here. Also seeing the 7 of John Barry involved in this. Now there is no full course yellow, so these cars will have to get going. If they have any damage, maybe go get that fixed on pit lane. Looks like Connor Webb might be having to take a tow back if he's got that suspension damage. Oh, what a nightmare start for the 129 car.
Yeah, just looked like a very, very bad spot, essentially, for Connor Webb. And let's put it this way, when the car gets very light, that's what we were talking about with the carousel. With the next-gen car, it's very easy for it to snap, happen out of the S's where he got loose up at the top, and just nowhere to go as his car. He ended up trying to keep the throttle going, and the car essentially slid back on the racing line right into the path of the back half of the field.
You're right, he just got loose at the top of the S's. Got a little bit into the grass and was just trying to save it. You're right. Everybody that got collected was just kind of the back half of the field with the 129 car. Here it is, a big wiggle, big tank slapper coming up out of the S's and into the grass. And unfortunately, a lot of other cars got collected in it. But hey, one great thing is they do have that fast repair. So as long as they can get it back to pit lane, they can just dip into the pits really fast, get back out on the lead lap, and hopefully get gathered back up on that competition caution that we were talking about. That's going to happen at lap 14. But to catch everybody up to speed, it looks like the Kyle Edgar show out front right now. He's pulled it out to, looks like 2+ seconds over Connor James in second place. And really the battle is kind of for this third position between Daniel Ott, Trayton Lapsevich, and Mark Royce.
Yeah, Edgar just taking off like a rocket ship already. Every corner he's gaining about a 10th or 2. He does have some experience in the GT3 series, averaging about an 11th place finish so far this campaign. But when it comes to these stock cars for this series, he's looked very comfortable against his fellow Canadians and fellow competitors for the real-world racetrack. So far, so smooth when it comes to his efforts so far.
Very smooth. Very smooth. And trust me, in these big cars, you see jumping over the bus stop curbs, smooth is key out there. The smoother you are on the steering inputs, the less tire wear you have, the smoother you are on those pedal inputs, the easier you are on the brakes and on the gas coming out of the corners, which makes for a faster race car, a calmer race car. And look what that translates to. Almost 3 seconds now ahead of second place. Jumping back to this battle for fourth place, looking at the number 50 machine of Mark Royce, that black and green flamed car out there, starting to apply the pressure to Trayton Lapsevich out front. And look at this, it's also a battle with Daniel Ott, who's taken a look maybe down into turn 1 on Connor James.
James again smoking that right front tire. Might be having an issue with the pedal, maybe something with the brake bias. He continuously is locking up that tire, and that's costing him lots of time. 2 seconds lost the previous lap. And this is essentially affecting all these drivers. Seems like James just struggling a lot long, even mid-run currently approaching that point.
Lapsevich is getting aggressive. He locks the tire going into the bus stop, goes for a ride up over the curbs. That's going to open the door for Mark Royce to go around the outside of the carousel. Not a move you see very often, but he is still alongside. Looks like Lapsevich will prevail with the cleaner bottom line there, but that was a mistake out of Lapsevich. He tried to poke his nose down in the inside of the bus stop, and Justin, you mentioned it in the pre-race, just that little bit going too deep on those brake markers resulted in that tire lockup and bouncing over the curbs, and now he's got to gather it all back up to hunt down Daniel Ott again.
And that'll take potentially a few laps, even some mistakes, to be able to open that opportunity. Again, when it comes to road course racing, a lot of it comes down to the rhythm, especially with these types of cars. Keep in mind, Trayton Lapcevich does have a fair bit of experience picked up from the D-Boxing NASCAR International iRacing Series powered by Digital Motorsports as its points leader, winning on the road course and becoming the first driver to win on the oval on the road course, and of course the NASCAR Pinty Series. But still, it takes time to reel a driver in. It takes raw pace to reel them in as well.
It definitely takes raw pace, but I think that Trayton Lapcevich definitely has that. It actually looks like we're going to be going by a lapped car through the carousel for this battle for fourth place right now. It shouldn't really affect any of the racing. Oh, looks like Lapcevich is actually going to go long way around the outside there, but he gets it done. Same thing with Mark Royce here. Oh no, looks like that lap car is going to be in the grass going through the braking zone, but thankfully does not get involved into this battle at all. That was the Connor Ellis machine. He was just trying to stay out of the way of it all, but I think he lost track of where his track position was and got on the brakes while he was on the grass, and that's what sent him for a ride out there. But jumping up to the battle up here, that's the 62 machine. Daniel Ott putting the pressure on Connor James going up the S's. Interesting to see the lines here, and going up the S's, there is a pretty big draft effect with these cars, especially punching such a big aerodynamic hole. They really are big boxes out there, especially even compared to the GT3 cars. So you do get a decent slipstream as these cars really approach almost 170 miles an hour going into the bus stop.
Indeed, that picks them up a fair bit of speed a little bit. It can be difficult to be able to keep on trailing behind still with a bit of some of the dirty air effect as talked about by some of the NASCAR drivers throughout last year's season, the Coke Series. But when you get the raw speed right, when you're able to pressurize a mistake, when you're able to keep it within range, you can counter the one spot up that's been really taken advantage of. Second to last corner, James struggles to stay in the marks of the track.
We'll have to keep an eye on that second to last corner because, yeah, look at this. Daniel Ott, looking at the lap times, another 1/10 of a second taken out of Connor James there in the second place position. I think it's only a matter of time until that 62 machine is able to find a way to poke his nose down somewhere, but he's just got to be far enough alongside that number 4 machine to make the pass stick. We've seen some of the moves out of other competitors maybe take a lunge, and these cars don't like to make a big lunge. They like to stay that smooth, consistent rhythm like you were saying, Justin.
Exactly, and as well, keep in mind with the next-gen car, it can be difficult if one of those bottom parts of the car hit the racetrack. If your car starts losing grip at the back end with the way the tire treads are, it's very hard to save the race car. It's gotten a little bit easier as time has gone on, per se, on the sim, but it's still very tricky if you really slide those rears. So far, you see what right there? Started to feel that slide, just corrected the right time. Half a second later, that car would have been bye-bye.
It's great that you point this stuff out. I'm such a technical guy when it comes to racing and driving, and you're right, you have to manage the tires over the entire course of the run, and here in road racing, it's a little bit more difficult than what you think. A lot of the oval drivers, you can get into a rhythm, and the corners look the same pretty repetitively, but here in turn 1, for example, you got to be on the brakes plus the gas, and then you have to manage the nose up through the S's, and then going into the bus stop, you got to manage the car bouncing over those curbs, like you said, and make sure not to bottom it out. So there are so many more variables per lap on a road race course, and I don't think it necessarily makes it more difficult than oval racing. It's just more on the plate per lap.
Absolutely. It takes a lot, speed-wise, to be able to manage things. Keep in mind, lap traffic management wasn't expecting several lap cars for the leader to deal with, but we just seen Matthew Phaneuf on the other side of the bus stop last time around have to check up for the lap traffic. That cost him a few tenths. He's already gained the time back. That's how fast he is right now.
Matthew Phaneuf out there. And looking at our leader, Kyle Edgar, as he dives down through turn 1 again, working lap 9 of 30. We will have that competition caution coming up here in just a handful of laps, but wow, I was looking at his lap times. He got held up a little bit there, that last one, based off of some traffic that he was getting by, that now the second and third place cars are getting by themselves. But Kyle Edgar really is the class of the field right now, almost a full second faster when we're comparing fastest laps between him and even the second place running machine. He's extended that gap now to 6 seconds over Connor James in the number 4. And I think that he definitely will be the class of the field tonight. It's going to have to come down to a mistake out of Kyle Edgar, or maybe we'll see some pit strategy that Kyle Edgar might take some tires and other cars might only take 2 or none, but it's going to have to come a wild card to really knock Kyle Edgar off of this top spot.
Yeah, going to take some strategy, going to take some luck, going to take major differences, to say the very least, with how things are playing out here. Remember, though, we talked about when it comes to the Trade and Lapsevich and Daniel Ott battle, it takes a few laps to regather composure and close up. Guess who's closed back up?
I do see that white number 20. Now, I know he's number 32 on timing and scoring, but that is Trayton Lapsevich that, you're right, he's caught back up to the back bumper of Daniel Ott. This is the area that he made that lockup move earlier. He's close enough, but thinks wisely. He's going to try to get on the bumper a little bit closer this time around. He knows that he's got to maybe get alongside Daniel Ott in order to throw that braking move down in there, because the 62 machine, that black and green car, is a tough cookie to pass.
Yeah, he's been very consistent. We've seen it with the braking marks, even to the bus stop, that Ott feels more comfortable with the brakes. Trayton Lapsevich very loose again. May have been a little bit slidey on that entry. He seems a little bit more on the loose side in a lot of these corners, and almost like a push-loose condition we just seen there too. He seems to be just struggling to be able to close the grip up once he's within half a second.
Watching him through turn 1, car looks okay through turn 1, but I agree with you, Justin. It looked very, very loose through the final 2 corners, and coming from a driver's perspective, I like driving a loose car, but it is death when it comes to tire management and tire wear. When the car is loose, it's turning really, really well, and that might be okay for a handful of laps, but once you get to the back half of the stint, it really starts to negatively affect how you can attack your battles. But right now, it seems like Lapsevich has come to grips with maybe a little bit of yaw angle in the car, and he's continuing to close that gap on Daniel Ott.
Slowly but surely, he's been better, it seems, to a Sector 1. Keep in mind, Juan Salazar, who's having a hard time finding the pit box we just seen there, did take a scheduled pit stop to try and beat the stage. Trayton Lapsevich, though, again, kicking out the rear. Ott starting to feel the footsteps.
Lapsevich is sliding and out of that blast corner and going to take a look down into turn 1 here. He's going to get side by side with Daniel Ott. This will be a move. Hangs on with the momentum around the outside, and there's the Salazar car coming out of the pits. We're going to have a traffic jam coming up the S's. Lapsevich is going to capitalize. That's going to put Ott there too wide up through the S's, but they all get it sorted out, thankfully, as that is definitely a funnel point on the racetrack. And headed down into the bus stop now, actually pretty calm. Mark Royce checking out around the outside around Salazar.
Seemed like Royce had to check up a little bit as a result of the run on the outside of the S's. That cost him a fair bit of time. But a bit of a bold move from Trayton Lapsevich, but in some cases, you need to be cutthroat. If you feel like you've got the pace of the back end of the run like he does, you have to go before the comp caution for the position.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. You gotta go. And especially since you know those laps are winding down, sure, let's burn off these tires. Let's get everything that I can out of them. And look at that. He moved up in terms of track position, promote him up into that 3rd place position. And maybe with that restart, he'll be able to move up even further. Jumping back on board here, this is a battle for the 9th place, the 07 of Jack Dixon. battling currently right now with Connor Webb going through the bus stop, bouncing it over these curbs. That's a battle out there for 8th on the racetrack. Looks like the 129. Connor Webb got wicked loose outside, way out there in the marbles. You don't want to drive out there.
Yeah, it seemed like he hit just about every single curb. That caused him to just get very snap loose. He's lucky he didn't spin it once he hit the grass. The grass is like ice.
It's funny you mentioned that. I call iRacing the grass ice sand, because it really is like that here in the simulator. You put a wheel on that green stuff and around you go, it seems like. And you mentioned Juan Salazar in the pits trying to find his pit stall, but he actually made that pit stop before the competition caution. Unfortunately, he fell a lap down, so I'm not sure if that strategy is going to pay off exactly how he wants, but I think that was definitely a strategy call to get the stop done early, wouldn't you say?
It's something I've seen with other leagues, especially with the comp cautions. I'm surprised we didn't see James do it. He would have been the best one to pull it off, and it looks like Dixon knows his pace had fallen off by 2 seconds compared to Webb's confident pace when he isn't spinning the car around. So it looks like Dixon, thinking big picture, just gave it up there.
Agreed. Dixon definitely pulled over, and he saw the pressure that Webb was applying, saw that speed, and I like to think of it as you're not letting them by, you're pulling out the notebook and taking notes on how that car is so fast, and I'm going to check those notes, apply them to myself, and get faster out there as he watches that 129 car set a pretty fast lap in comparison to himself. And looks like we are going to be lap 13, lap 14 right now. So we're going to wait on this competition caution that should be thrown here any minute. I know that we're searching for a few battles out there on the racetrack, looking at John Barry in this number 7 machine exiting out of turn 1. And in fact, there it is, Justin, full course yellow. We are going to rack them all up and get them going again here in just a few laps. But what do you think about the first half of the race so far?
So far, pretty clean. So far, some good battles. So far, Kyle Egger absolutely has a rocket ship tonight. But it seems Trey Lapsovich is coming into his zone, starting to pick up the tempo. James started to match Kyle Egger's pace before the comp caution, so there is some back-end speed for the 4. It's going to be interesting how the pit stops fare out for 1, but 2, how some of the drivers try to adjust to be able to see, can they pick up more spots here with everyone bunched back up?
Yeah, Kyle Edgar has been the class of the field. We'll see what happens during these pit stops here. We're going to get the pace car really to collect the field here and get them all bunched back up, so that way all the pace or all the pit stops should happen at once. Taking a look at that number 47 machine, Kyle Edgar on screen. Justin, you mentioned it. He's just been the class of the field. A 109.99, his fastest lap. I'm looking at the timing and scoring. I think our next fastest competitor, second place, Connor James at a 110.6. So looks like Kyle Edgar has a full 3/4 of a second per lap on these guys out there.
And that's the shocking thing when it comes to how consistent Egger's been. Even with the traffic, he's been only a couple tenths off. He just seems to have a feel for the grip. He has a feel for the corner exits. He's been limiting the fall off well, good on the tire management. It's been an extremely impressive night, to say the very least, for Egger. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to figure out what do we do to keep up with him after the pit stops, even once we get to the restart.
I agree, and when you're sitting there as Connor James or Trayton Lapsovich, you're scratching your head saying, how do we get around them? But I think your best chance is the chance that's going to be coming up, and not even in pit lane, but it's that restart. We all know how dicey starts and restarts can be, and maybe if you're Trayton Lapsovich or maybe if you're Connor James, you can catch Kyle Edgar with a poor restart and leapfrog him there with just maybe a turn 1 move or drafting up the S's, as we see so often here on these restarts at Watkins Glen. When you get these cars packed up together, the slipstream effect is quite large going up that hill.
It can be, and it also takes the right corner exit where you get that extra bit of speed, about a few miles an hour quicker, if anything, and you're in the right spot to take advantage of it. It's not as simple as launching from 5 car lengths back. You have to be close enough to realistically make the move cleanly and without potentially costing yourself and or others opportunities if you end up making a mistake and checking others up.
And it looks like the field is going to be hitting pit road. Looks like a little stack up here between the front 2 cars, but they all enter relatively cleanly. Kyle Edgar is going to lead all of the lead lap cars down onto pit road. All the pit stalls are really far down here, kind of on the downhill section, and it's so important, especially for these top 3, to hit their pit stalls properly. Don't overshoot it. Don't give up any unnecessary track position that you don't have to in it. Looks like all of these front 5 cars here did get them stopped in the box just fine. Left sides up. Looks like right sides are going up on the majority of the cars, but something interesting to note. Justin, did you see that? I saw only 2 tires go on that Kyle Edgar machine.
In fact, if I'm looking right, I didn't see the jacks go up at all. Fuel only. I am confused on the decision, but that is a decision. 9 seconds sitting in the box with fuel. Didn't see the jacks up.
And that is going to be an interesting strategy call to keep an eye on. And the other thing is the number 8 machine, Jose Pooch out there. He was able to sneak one by us. He got that yellow or pit stop done before the yellow flag. He's currently got 3 laps on his stint of tires, and he is our current leader, even after all these other cars came down to pit road. So he's going to be the one that's going to dictate the restart, put Kyle Edgar in an even more vulnerable spot now with everybody else on fresh tires behind him. This is going to be one heck of a restart to watch.
Should be a very fun one. Let's put it that way to see how Jose handles it, for 1. And 2, what's the pace difference going to be between Edgar and James now? Freshies versus just fuel only and on old tires. We already seen a fair bit of fall off in some cases, especially when it comes to even Edgar. By about a second or so, starting to see the fall off. He's still got great pace compared to the others, but it's not going to be as easy now for him.
And not as easy. And I think the difference between what he had before is that he had that 5+ second gap that he could just go out there and run a rhythm of lap time out there. And even if he had tire wear, that's okay. He's just running a rhythm. That is totally different than having to be aggressive racing on a restart on really used tires when other people have some fresh stuff around you. It really almost handcuffs you, if you kind of put it into a relative term, because you're trying to be aggressive, but we saw the cars slip sliding all around, and those other cars aren't going to be sliding, only you are. And let me tell you, it is so frustrating when you are racing on gummy bears and everybody is hooked up on stickers. This is the number 1 machine to catch you all up to speed. He went that lap down doing his pit stop before the competition yellow. Getting his wave around right now, going through the bus stop. Pretty hot. Keep it together out there, Juan Salazar. And he'll catch up with the back of the field for this restart here. It looks like be gridded up. 11th place, it should say. I'm sorry, looks like 14th place. First car, or last car on the lead lap. Justin, any final thoughts here on this restart with Jose Pooch dictating it all for everybody?
I can definitely tell you with the radio communication, they want him to fight as hard as possible. We'll see if he follows the orders. After that point, it becomes the question mark. Who's going to be able to keep up with Edgar and who gets the chance to be able to pounce on Edgar? James has looked fairly solid tonight. Lapsevich, we know, has good speed on the road courses if you put him in the right situation. So the pressure's definitely on if you're not just Kyle Edgar, but the control car and Jose at this point. You better hope you don't make a mistake.
You're right. Better hope you don't make a mistake. Don't lock up too much into turn 1. Do a good job at maintaining your speed. Come into the green flag. But remember, you are the lead car. You get to decide when to accelerate. It's important that Kyle Edgar really gets a good restart here. He's going to be on the driver's left side, which is not the ideal line that you want going into turn one. But if you leave enough space, you can really carry the momentum out of turn one. But on those used tires, we're going to see what type of traction they has as Barney has the green flag in his hand, and we've got the restart underway. Jose Puig actually gets a very poor start. Kyle Edgar is going to lead him across the start-finish line, but that number 8 goes charging deep into turn one. Kyle Edgar is going to try to do an over-under as the number 8 gets loose in front of the field, collects all of the front 3 runners, and we've got mayhem going up the S's. That all started with the number 8 car going too wide there on the exit of turn one, and unfortunately turned himself around in front of Kyle Edgar and Connor James, and it looks like we've got another yellow flag on the racetrack, rightfully so, Justin.
I'm not sure what to say. Basically, I will say this. The move we've seen on the send, race control did tell Kyle Edgar, give the spot back. That's where that came in and why it was backed up a little bit. However, when it comes to Puig, just overruns the curb, way too quick. That snaps him around right into your contenders for the race and collects, well, all of them.
Yes, all of them. I saw Lapsevich, I saw Kyle Edgar, I saw Connor James, and riding on the roof here, we're going to see him jump out over the exit here, get loose, and ultimately just collect front 2 cars as they go by. I think that was the 62 of Daniel Ott in the black and green machine was the first to squeak through unscathed, I think, and I think there was actually another spin that was going on in turn one behind this as well.
Yeah, Training Lapsevich looped it around to the back. He sent it too strong to the outside and did a full 360 to turn it around. Lost all his track position. Still got the spots around those involved in the incident, but watch. He tries to get a run on the outside. Or what he knows, you have Puig on the inside, tries to get around the outside of Edgar. Just goes around, apex off, way too out of the groove, and around it goes.
I think that was the key right there. Way too out of the groove. He was doing the right thing and leaving space for those cars on the inside, but ultimately he was just too far drivers left in the dirty stuff, and you just don't have the grip out there. Unfortunately, that's what caught Trayton Lapsevich out, but I don't see any damage for him on that white machine, so I think that he might have gotten away with one there, especially with how poorly the other front runners really ended up with that caution there.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that even with the amount of contact in some cases, that doesn't even look like there's much of a scratch on some of the drivers currently. Here's what I'm more concerned about in some of these cases. What are the tires going to be like at this point? As well as their chassis damage that is outside of the body. That's going to really potentially shake things up here and really make the charge from back to front exciting for some. In our news, Juan Salazar is now to 6th.
Yes, he is. That number 1 machine that we saw taking that wave around, if you will, on the previous caution has capitalized, and he finds himself all the way up to position 6, which means he's going to be restarting on row 3 of this next restart here. And while we do have this yellow flag, I want to mention our sponsors tonight. Maconi Entertainment, if you're interested in getting your own racing series broadcasted here on the screen, go check out Maconi Entertainment. Get in touch with Jeff Maconi, and he can set you squared away with getting all of the action broadcasted here. Also, Hot Rod Setups, the title sponsor of tonight's race and the Cup Series. Reach out to Hot Rod Setups on Facebook or Discord to learn more about everything that they offer and even get you maybe out here on the track with us. JP Alfonso Studios, the title sponsor of the GT3 Series. They're a tattoo shop there in Georgia. Go to jpalfonsostudios.com for all of their recent work and booking. Looks like we are going to be racking them up this time, Justin. We got the lights out on the pace car, getting the grid 2x2. Let's see if this restart is a little bit cleaner than last. Once again, what are your predictions here? Any final thoughts going into this one?
I'm expecting wildness. You have some of your top contenders now in the heart of the pack. It's going to be, you better pick your spots. You better keep it clean. You better time it up right. It's about to get wild, to say the very least here.
You better time it up right. I know that you're listening on some of those radios there, and I hear that the field is getting told it's go on green. So this number 62 machine doesn't really get to dictate this restart too much. He's got to be on his toes, and that means all of these cars in the back of the pack are really going to be kind of salivating at the mouth because they're going to have to be patient. Might see a little bit of an accordion effect, hopefully no damage. And something else to note, that number 8 car, Jose Puch, he was the one who got really loose and kind of caused all of that. He's actually restarting on that second row on the inside. We're going to see if there's any damage to that machine or if he decides to send it super deep here into turn 1 again. The Porsche pace car rounding out of the final corner. He is going to duck off drivers right behind pit wall. And we got the green flag in the hands of Barney, our trusted flag man. Looks like we've already got a green flag on the racetrack, and further back got a couple of big jumps from Kyle Edgar. Number 4 machine, also Connor James, as we're going to get 4 wide, 5 wide going into turn 1. They all get it sorted out. A few cars get pushed pretty wide, but all of them except Juan Salazar, and now it looks like Jack Dixon also getting turned around. But for the most part, all of the other cars make it up through the S's.
Yeah, troubles for Egger. You see in the backdrop as well. A good launch, though, for On and Barry. Traded Lapsevich, as soon as the green flag went, said, I'm going to the inside. And something's happened to Egger. Kyle Egger has just meatball flagged the car.
Yes, I think something happened to him going up the S's. I know that he was battling with Juan Salazar on the outside there at turn 1. And I'm checking out what exactly happened, and oh no, looks like Kyle Edgar just lost it by himself coming up the S's. We're getting a replay right now. You're going to see him get loose in this right-hander here and contact the wall. Driver's right. Day done for our fastest machine on track. That really opens up the door to who's going to take home the checkered flag tonight.
Daniel Ott's in a great spot as a result of that tow. You see already immediately saying, I got to go to the pit lane. Mandatory repairs to have to do. And now, as a result, the fight is on for second. Trey Lapsevich getting around John Barry easily.
Jose Puch there in the third place, trying to look around John Barry in that silver and black machine. John Barry's going to hang tough around the outside of turn 1. And now we got contact. I believe that's Mark Royce getting into Jose Puch. Oh no, Jose Puch is going to be turned around at the top of the S's, facing the wrong way. This is not a view you want as a driver. Mark Royce got into him too wide up through turn 3, and unfortunately that is the tow machine for Jose Puch, probably going to end the day. That promotes Connor James up to the 4th place. Justin, it was really busy going up the S's there.
Yeah, that was not a passing zone. You don't expect side-by-side going up the middle of the S's, let's put it that way. And when you're put into that spot where you're usually running a single file or usually have a give or take, tough spot, to say the very least, in that situation. Connor James, give him a shuttle, though. He survived the chaos. He's up to 4th. Downside, he's 3 seconds behind the leader.
3 seconds behind the leader. Looks like he also has some pace on John Barry, the number 7 machine in front of him. Barry goes wide through the apex of 1, through the exit, and that is going to allow Connor James to slip down the inside, promote the number 4 machine up to that 3rd place there. And yeah, no, Justin, I agree with you. Going up the S's is not a place where you go too wide, and Mark Royce really forced that move, and unfortunately, a couple cars got turned around out there, and thankfully, most of them still competing. Most notably, though, Kyle Edgar, we talked about him dominating the front half of the race, took himself out there. He had to take that tow and the quick repair. He's out on the screen, going through the carousel right now, and I'm trying to find him on timing and scoring to see how many laps down he is actually going to be, but it looks like he's out there in the 8th place, the first car 1 lap down.
Yeah, and he's essentially in a spot where just hoping to take advantage of attrition now. Absolutely dominant speed. You're not making a full racetrack up in 6 laps or so, to say the very least. Again, tough situation with the restart. Just the clip of the fender completely changes how his night finishes.
I agree, and you gotta wonder, Justin, did not taking tires play into that loose condition off a turn 1 or off a turn 2 on the restart? It will always be what if, and we can armchair quarterback the race control all we want, but ultimately it was Kyle Edgar that got loose all by himself on some old tires, and not going to be the result that he wants, as he's trying to make a little race out of it here with the number 7 machine of John Barry getting wide through the bus stop and carousel. And I always like to do the same thing. Even though you're not racing for position, I want to go out there and still race out there on the racetrack. It's all about smiling at the end of it. And riding aboard now with our second place runner, this is Trayton Lapsevich, slowly but surely hunting down Daniel Ott. Going to be working about 4 laps to go now that they cross start finish this last time. And looking at the lap times, Justin, Trayton Lapsevich a full half second faster than our leader.
What did I say earlier? You put him in the right spots, he'll take advantage of it and pick up the tempo. He's picking up the tempo. The S's have been his strength throughout this portion of the run compared to Daniel Ott. Now it's the matter of keep closing, set it up. It might take another lap or 2, but he is on the charge. He is sending it deeper than what he was earlier, too.
He did send it really deep through the bus stop there. Actually got in a little bit too deep, I think, for what he wanted. Thankfully, it didn't cost him too much time, and he actually reels in a good chunk of time, maybe a full car length through the apex of the carousel there. It certainly seems like Trayton Lapsevich in that white machine has his car hooked up right now in comparison to that number 62. But if we flash back to earlier in the race, that number 62 was so tough to pass. He's got those brake markers dialed down in right, and Lapsevich definitely looks loose out there. He's got to be confident and aggressive enough to challenge that 62 machine in those brake zones.
And don't forget, see who's coming to the backdrop? Connor James is flying as well as one of the quickest cars too. So if these two up in front start battling fiercely, Connor James has a shot here. He's close to under 2 seconds, but he needs them to fight.
Great catch there. Yes, his lap time, 1:10.29, identical to that Trayton Lapsevich 1:10.27 there. So if these front two get into any sort of battle, expect that number 4 machine to get closed up very rapidly on the back of these two. And it looks like Trayton Lapsevich, each corner just slowly taking a little bit more out of the lead of Daniel Ott. Looks like he's now down to 0.3 of a second as he really wags the tail through these final couple of corners here. We noticed really loose out of that Lapsevich machine, but loose equals fast, and loose means that the car is turning really well. We'll see if that equates into a car that can be aggressive enough to challenge Daniel Ott in the brake zones as they go through turn 1 and up into the S's. Another time working lap 28 of 30. Something else to keep an eye on. We only got about 2.5 laps left here, so the amount of opportunities are dwindling down as well.
It might come down to the last lap with how Trayton Lapsevich is starting to struggle a little bit out of some of these corners with how he's charging. He started to reel it back a little bit. That's going to be the challenging part, getting alongside fully and making a clean pass here. As we talked about, if they go side by side too long, James has a great shot here. Ott continues to seem to use every bit of this runoff space to try and maximize the speed at this point.
I think you're right, is that Ott is really maximizing is because Lapsevich car is turning so well. Look at him really get the run through these corners here. He just has such great apex speed in that white machine there, and it seems like he can't get the drive off of turn 1, which is really where he needs it to capitalize coming up through the S's. And it seems like this time out of turn 1, this is as close as he's ever been. We'll see how his run is up through the S's here, see if he can get tucked up into the back of that 62 machine. But no, he drifts wide up through the S's, and all of that hard work and track position is lost. He's going to have to gather it back up through the bus stop and carousel, where we've really seen him close that time. But look at this. Now we've got all 3 cars in one frame here for the lead. Connor James has entered the picture.
And he's coming in fast. He might have a shot here. If there's any mistakes from Daniel Ott, he might have a shot. The problem is he's got Trent Lapcevich as the buffer between him and the race lead.
Lapcevich is the buffer between him, but rounding out the final corner here, we're going to see the white flag from Barney the Flagman. Under start finish, it's Ott leading, Lapcevich leading James going down into turn 1 for the final time. Who can take it deepest on the brakes, but most importantly is the exit of turn 1. Certainly looks like they all get a good exit, but look out, there's a lap car there in the middle of turn 2. That's going to throw a couple of the cars off of their desired racing line, but Lapcevich actually tags the wall up through the S's. I don't think it's going to cost him too much time, but you know the number 4 machine is just waiting at the buffet table. He says, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, make more mistakes up there.
Lapcevich just absolutely sent it now to the bus stop. Closed up all the time. He might have to use the bumpers.
Lapcevich really carrying the speed through the carousel, wagging the tail, the car turning so well, trying to get the run out in the slipstream of Ott, but Ott has been so good hitting these consistent brake markers. Just 2 more turns. Look at Lapcevich carry the apex speed sideways. Oh no, he's going to lose it. Contact drivers left. That's going to give Daniel Ott the race win. He's coming out of the final corner, accelerating towards the checkered flag. The number 62 machine will be your race winner here at Watkins Glen, followed by Connor James. And ultimately, it was disaster for Lapcevich as we get a big old donut out of Daniel Ott in the 62 machine.
What a finish, to say the very least. Ott, great job to hold on under pressure. Trent Lapcevich seemed to think about using a little tap to get him loose. Instead, he made himself loose with how hard he pushed.
What a finish indeed. As we get a bunch of group burnouts, we're just going to take a very, very quick break here, and we will be back with the finishing results for you all. Just a very quick break there, and we are back here on Maconi Entertainment with the race results here from the Ignite Series Hot Rod Setups Cup Series. Taking home the race win tonight was that number 62, Daniel Ott, kind of that immovable object out there. We had lots of challengers, but not very many people got by him, and ultimately taking home the checkered flag, Daniel Ott, our race winner. Followed up with Connor James there, second place. Trayton Lapcevich actually still comes home in third place there. Good recovery out of that final last-ditch attempt effort on the second to last turn, providing us some great racing there in the final couple laps. Mark Royce, fourth. John Barry rounding out the top 5. Jack Dixon, sixth place. Juan Salazar. Kyle Edgar, a very fast car, a lap down that really led the front half of the night. Nick Ledson and Justin Knapp round out the top 10.
11th spot tonight went to Jose Puch. He finished 4 laps down. He had to come in the final stages of the race into the pit lane. Connor Webb, 8 laps down, finished 12th. Matthew Fano finished 13th. 9 laps down, the same laps down as Connor Ellis, the Oscar Hot Rod Series driver, finishing 14th. JP Alfonso finished 15th, 11 laps down. He picked up several mandatory repairs and black flags. And of course, Don York in race control, and Michael Farrell only participated in practice.
That does do it for all of the 17 competitors, and looks like we do have quite a few drivers lined up here waiting to get interviewed, and we're going to start with our race winner here, Daniel Ott in the number 62 machine. Congratulations, Daniel. What did you think of those final few laps, and how much pressure were you under from that Lapsevich machine?
Oh man, he was fast. He was definitely faster than me, but I was just running qualifying laps, trying to do my best to stay ahead of him.
Well, you did a great job out there. We noticed you really had those brake markers dialed in and didn't allow any challengers really up next to you at all. They were able to fill the mirrors, but weren't able to get by you. And one thing I want to ask you, you were the car that were able to sneak through that initial restart mess. Take us through that restart in your eyes, and how did you get through there?
Oh, I knew it was going to kind of be a mess. I know there's some aggressive guys out there, so I just kind of took it easy and tried to shoot the gap and hope nobody got me while they were spinning. It worked out.
Well, it did work out, and we're familiar with you racing over in the GT3 series as well. And, you know, I believe that you raced the Audi over there. And talk to me a little bit about how different that GT3 car is than this Cup car here at Watkins Glen.
It is a completely different machine. This thing has got so much power. You got to be really careful on the throttle. But that Audi, you can just hammer down and it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this thing's a combination of loose and tight at the same time. So it's a bear.
Well, since you have so much experience in both, which do you prefer? Do you prefer coming and racing the Cup cars here, or do you prefer racing the GT3 cars?
Oh, I'm much better with the GT cars. I like the old Cup car better. I'm not a huge fan of this new one. I like it a little bit better now, but never quite like the way this one drove.
Well, we just got a eyes up replay of that restart that you just snuck your way through. And before we let you go, is there anybody that you want to say thank you to or give a shout out to that helps you get it done out there?
Thanks to Mark Royce. We were talking together the whole race, kind of keeping an eye on what's going on out there. So thanks to him. Thanks to you guys for doing this broadcast.
Well, congratulations, Daniel. You are tonight's race winner here at Watkins Glen. And it looks like we also have our second place finisher standing aside Justin here, Connor James.
Yes, the Connor James, you were flying as quick as you could to get up there. P2 to be able to come away with the second spot here tonight. Talk us through that charge to try and close up the Daniel Ott after the final restart.
Yeah, it was just a matter of surviving that last restart, honestly. And I think just kind of by the time the tires came in, I think Trayton was in the same boat. Just kind of ran out of time there. So, but all in all, after the wreck there, to be able to come back second, we were happy with it.
I was going to say, what was kind of your viewpoint on that? Of course, it was a tough spot coming out of the corner. It seemed all the contenders got collected.
Yeah. We were all kind of questioning the 8 staying out. And I just seen him overdrive it going into 1. I knew it wasn't going to be good. And then I just seen Kyle come across my nose after he got collected by him. And that was pretty much it, which was unfortunate for Kyle because I think, honestly, if that didn't happen, he was going to be winning this race easy tonight.
Now, curious question. Seeing the tires seem to be something you were playing around with. How do I phrase this? This is something I think from the real world late model more so. It was intriguing to see it with the next gen car because usually that doesn't work.
Yeah, it was. We learned it really quickly in practice that if you don't get the tire pressures up, you're just dragging the track and the car's kind of all over the place. So Don gave us all the green light to try to help us all really before we started the race to get heat in our tires. And Kyle played a good strategy on the comp caution, not taking tires. And I knew at that point I was in trouble. So just tried to keep heating them as much as possible. And like I said, I think if we had another 3 or 4 laps, Trayton and myself probably could have got around him, but just ran out of time, really.
Anybody want to give a shout out to after tonight?
Yeah, for sure. Reaper Speed Labs, Pull Down Motorsports. You guys for putting this on. It's really cool to go back and watch it after the race, and Don for running the league as well. And yeah,
Thank you very much for your time, Connor.
thank you.
That's Connor James finishing second tonight. One of the top running, in fact, the top running driver from the Cup Series. Third spot tonight went to Trayton Lapcevich. Although he got close to the lead, Joey, he almost got there.
He almost got there indeed. And yes, standing along with Trayton Lapcevich here. Trayton, so close, just a corner away from potentially making the move for the race-winning victory. Take us through that final lap.
Yeah, I mean, I was just surprised to be in that position, honestly. I was gaining on him, then when I got close to him, it seemed like we kind of just leveled off. There was a lap car there on the inside going through the S's, and I think that kind of messed me up because that's where I was gaining a lot of my time on him. I pick up a couple tenths through there. So I didn't have that lap. I had a really good bus stop in carousel. And yeah, I pushed it really hard going into that last second last corner, and then really hard out, and a little harder than I was able to coming out of the second last corner. So I got close, tried what I could anyways, and yeah.
Well, you still came home third, so you were able to recover out of that tire wall there from that second to final corner. And one thing that I was noticing here on the broadcast, it seemed like you had a pretty loose race car out there. And while it hurt you maybe in a couple areas, it really seemed to help the car turn, especially through the carousel, and you were able to make up tremendous amounts of time through the carousel. Did you really feel like that's where one of your strongest areas was with the car?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that is lack of experience. I showed up late to practice, and I had never even driven the next gen on a road course prior to this. So I got a couple laps in qualifying, and then the race was just a whole learning curve for me. So I think by the halfway break, I thought I had learned it all, and then I even learned more after. So I think I was loose the whole time, and then kind of what happened was I was loose from when I was kind of driving the car incorrectly, and since I had already burnt off some of the rear tire, it just carried on to when I started driving the car properly anyways. So yeah, I felt like being looser through the carousel definitely helped and get a better exit because the car was generally on the tighter side anyways.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, and you're already working towards getting yourself faster, which is great to see. So keep your head down and keep doing what you're doing out there, Trayton. And before I let you go, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, just a big thanks to the guys at the Ignite Racing Series for putting this on. It's a lot of fun in the off season, and shout out to Reaper Speed Lab as well.
Well, Trayton, congratulations on that third place finish here tonight at Watkins, Glen. And looks like we do have a few more interviews that are going to be rolling in. We're going to be doing all the top 5 interviews here tonight. And Justin is alongside with Mark Royce.
Well, Mark, you come away with the 4th place finish tonight. Talk us through your evening.
Well, it was pretty smooth sailing until that competition caution came out, and then the mayhem started. I was just kind of cruising along, trying to hold a good, decent pace. I didn't really have much for the front 3, but it was fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, part of the chaos seen on screen right now, the move in the middle of the S's. Talk us through the decision to go on the inside of the 8 in a non-passing zone.
Well, it's like this. The guy in front of me passed him with ease, and he was way off pace. And if you do anything, the car is so light in there, and if you lift or do anything drastic, you take a chance of losing your car. And I just didn't want to hit the brakes, and I had a good run going up inside of it, and it just didn't work out.
Well, overall, how would you describe your experience with these cars of the road course tonight? As we've seen a lot of drivers slip and slide. What was your experience like?
There's a fine line between overdriving and slipping and sliding, or not being fast. You have to find the edge, and well, when we were 4 wide into turn 1, we were all on the edge, I think. What a blast.
Just seeing that here. Anyone you want to give a shout out to, though, after your run here tonight?
I just Ignite and Maconi Entertainment. You guys put on a great show, and congratulations to my teammate up there, Daniel, Off, with the win, man. That's pretty awesome.
Well, congratulations. The top 5 finish, Mark, once again. Once again, as he mentioned, his teammate finishing up in first. John Barry, meanwhile, he was amongst those who survived the big one off the restart, off the competition caution. He's now standing by.
Yeah, got John Barry, the driver of the number 7 machine out there, really had a good run in the last half of the race is what we saw. Is that really felt where you got into your groove out there?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was never going to be the guy with the pace tonight. I do not really drive much for cup cars, so this was a new experience. First time doing a cup car on a road course. And so I knew I would just sit back, see what happens before that competition caution, and then, let her rip in the second half.
Well, let her rip indeed, and you got a good amount of screen time, especially in the second half of the race there, as we saw a lot of the kerfuffle happening in the S's and turn 1 there, and you were able to escape all of that, especially on the first restart. Were you having to kind of duck and dodge and weave through there, or take us through that restart through your eyes?
Oh, it felt like I was skiing, you're slalom kind of back and forth, just trying to dodge each one on the gas, on the brake. Fortunately, worked out, came out in the front, and, I joked and laughed. If I would have put any odds on this before the race, me being in top 3 at any point, I wouldn't have put 1% on it. So worked out well.
Well, sometimes it is a battle of attrition, but I think that you showed plenty of speed out there, so you deserve that top 5 finish, John. And before I let you go, is there anybody that you want to say hi to while we got you here?
Well, hey, I appreciate that. It was a lot of fun. Definitely shout out to Don York for putting everything together. It's been a fun series in GTs and the Cup cars. I guess last thing would just be shout out to the LTOM team. Looking forward to 24 Hours of Daytona.
Awesome, John. Well, once again, congratulations on that 5th place finish here at Watkins Glen. And that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Justin, I want to get your final thoughts on the race this evening.
The competition caution definitely mixed things up in ways I think even the competitors didn't expect tonight. It came down a lot to strategy. It came down a lot to being able to manage chaos more so than traffic. And in the end, Danny Lott managed his way through the chaos nice and simply, cleanly, and efficiently. And as a result, controlled his own fate the rest of the way. A strong finish for Danny Lott to come away with the victory. Good to hold on to the pressure with Trenton Lapsovich trying to force a mistake. He held firm the whole final run of the race.
That was a golden wrap-up right there. Yes, chaos on the competition caution. And we want to thank tonight's race sponsor, Hot Rod Setups, as well as our broadcast partners here at Maconi Entertainment. Calling the action tonight was myself, Joey Atterbury, alongside Justin Prince in the booth with Eddie Smith producing. As always, we would like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in to tonight's racing action. We hope to see you on December 12th for the next race of the Ignite JP Alfonso GT3 series at Long Beach. Until then, stay tuned to the Maconi Entertainment social media pages for upcoming broadcasts. A special shout out, of course, goes to the entire staff for their work in bringing this racing to you, and we hope to see you at the next event. This has been a production of Maconi Entertainment, and we wish you all a good night.